So, Amy, how about that Road to 2010 event today? What do you think of Nick Ayers and Nathan Daschle?
Yeah, I mean, such jackasses.
Oh my God. Oh.
I know. Wait, hold on. Are we taping?
Yeah, we're.
Comfortable. Welcome to Hotline TV. I'm Amy Walter.
And I'm John Mercurio. Well, we just finished up yet another triumphant Road to 2010 event here at the Hotline. We invited the executive directors of the Democratic Governors Association and his counterpart at the Republican Governors Association to meet with us before a live audience.
Live studio audience.
I think they were live. I'm pretty sure most of them were live. And then we grilled them about their party's prospects for 2010. Amy Walter, you were there. You were my co-moderator. What stood out to you? Tell me about your
Let's talk about the very first thing that stood out to me.
Please.
Nathan and Nick.
Yes.
Nathan, Democratic Governors Association. Nick, head of the Republican Governors Association.
Right.
Friendly.
Friendly. Very friendly.
Very good friends. The one thing they share in common, their love of Ultimate Fighting Club.
Big fighting. Big fighters.
Wow. I mean, it's very cliche in some ways, that right, with the cliche and the cage and the back and forth. But these two, they don't seem like the type that would get in there with bloody fists.
And
All right.
And yet they do.
Here's what stood out to me. Look, they mostly stayed on their talking points. Nobody went too far afield. I think there were a couple interesting things. First, the Obama factor. We asked them what role we think Obama's playing in this race. And the fact that Nathan said, on balance, the president's an asset. I thought that was an interesting way to frame that, suggesting, of course, that there are times when and places where it may not be the best thing to do.
Like in Virginia, for example.
Well, and that's where Nick pointed out, he thought that there is no way that we're going to see President Obama in Virginia during the last week of that campaign.
Very
what about you?
Well, I think let's talk about a couple things. We had a brief conversation, but I think an interesting conversation with them about redistricting and what states they're going to be watching as we go forward. There's in 2010, obviously, whoever wins the governor's office in 2010, in most states will have a heavy role to play in the 2012 congressional redistricting, and both. I think it was both. Actually, no. I think it was just Nathan Daschle, the Democrat, said that the Democrats at this point very interested in how that issue will play out in Florida. Obviously, Florida likely to gain one, maybe two more seats in the post 2010 reapportionment of seats, and the governor in that state plays a heavy role. The Republicans control the legislature. Republicans in 2000, when they controlled the entire process, when Jeb Bush was governor. And Republicans control the legislature, added 2 seats, and I think over the course of the next 2 to 4 years, added 4 to 6 Republicans to the delegation. That's changed since. So obviously this is a state they're watching very closely. Also, the other state, California, not likely to gain as much as Florida, might actually lose one of their seats. The governor plays a role in that.
Yeah, even the states where you're losing seats, it's just as important to be in control of redistricting.
Well, we saw in Michigan in 2000, Pennsylvania in 2000, where you had
Ohio.
You had incumbents incumbents pitted against each other, and in each of those states, I think Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania in 2000, Republicans controlled the process, pitted or tried to pit Democrats against each other.
We also talked a little bit about recruiting.
We did talk about recruiting.
And you and I should weigh in on this, because they have their opinions. I think we should give ours. We asked both of them who they thought the other side's biggest recruiting failure and success was. For success, Nick Ayers gave it up for Roy Barnes in Georgia, which I do think is a fair assessment. Of course, he wants to beat Roy Barnes.
He says, that made my day when I learned I can defeat him.
But I think it's also, look, this seat would not even be in play but for the fact that Roy Barnes is in this race.
Sure.
And I think that you took a state, again, this is a state where Democrats, they either are going to write this thing off and say, we just can't win in the South, or they say this is a fast-growing state. It's going to look a lot like North Carolina, look a lot like Virginia. If we're going to make inroads here, we got to start winning statewide races.
Well, they both talked about Charlie Baker and agreed that he was a strong recruiting success for Republicans. Nick said Charlie Baker will be a star as the next governor of Massachusetts, and of course Nathan Daschle said that yes, Charlie Baker is a star, and we look forward to defeating him.
Who do you think is their biggest recruiting success?
Which one, the Republicans or the
Pick
Democrats?
one.
I'm going to say I agree with them. I think Charlie Baker, in a state like Massachusetts, where you do have the potential for a good race. I mean, as a Republican, you have the potential to pick up that seat. A very, very vulnerable incumbent governor in a state where you're really not likely to be able to play unless you can field that sort of Bill Weld-style Republican candidate who can win. And I think Charlie Baker does fit that. He does come self-funded. He doesn't come with a paper trail. He doesn't come with a Beacon Hill background, which is exactly what works for Republicans.
In that state. You know who I'm going to pick is Brian Sandoval in Nevada,
that's nice.
because, look, whether Jim Gibbons wins, whether he's on the ballot or not, he's not going to be the nominee.
Right.
And the good news for Republicans is having Sandoval as the Republican nominee gives them a very good opportunity, especially if Roy Reid is the nominee for the Democrats.
I do think Alex Sink, also in Florida, for Democrats as chief financial officer, was a good, she's the only statewide office holder right now for Democrats, so to get her on the ballot makes that automatically a competitive race. So I think that's also a success.
All right, then we asked about most vulnerable incumbents. Part of the problem, as we've noted earlier, is there aren't many Republicans running for re-election, so that took a lot off the table. If you take Gibbons off, who was the most vulnerable Republican incumbent? And Nathan Daschle thought it was Jen Brewer, and that's fair, because that's about right.
I think that Nick said that the Democratic one was Deval Patrick, which is a pretty fair assessment. I think most people would agree with that as well.
He called him, quote, the John Corzine 2.0.
Ouch.
Ouch, ouch, ouch.
We'll see about that.
All right. Finally.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen.
Hotline's last word.
Oh, Hotline's last word. Dun, 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 dun.
John Mercurio, the most exciting, interesting, want-to-watch race of 2010 will be.
I hate to give a long answer to a short, good question.
But you're going to do it anyway.
The short answer, I think, will be California, if only because you have the potential for a pretty lively primary on the Democratic side that'll keep us going through.
And the Republican side, too.
And the Republican side, but
not
lively
as interesting.
Characters, colorful characters, Jerry Brown, Gavin Newsom. And then you have the potential for Jerry Brown to really make it an interesting fall race. I don't necessarily think it'll be that close. I think the Democrats have an advantage in taking back this seat. So if by exciting you mean competitive, that's probably not the choice. I think Florida is probably more competitive. Both Nick Ayers and Nate Daschle said that if they're ahead by 5 points on election night in Florida, they're probably having a good night around the country.
Right.
But I don't see Alex Sink and Bill McCollum really giving us the kind of drama and theatrics that we at the Hotline live and breathe for.
That is
I do also,
very good point.
think when you talk about exciting races, you can't not mention the Texas governor's primary between Kay Bailey and.
Because that is going to be ugly, dirty, rock'em, sock'em, and already in there we have people flying planes over other people's events. We have truck convoys trying to disrupt press conferences. I mean, it's that kind of race, and that's the kind of thing we appreciate here at the Hotline. It's not just policy debates, right?
Precisely.
All right. So, we, unfortunately, are out of time. But that doesn't mean that John Mercurio can't tell us that we should be thankful for Hotline TV.
Watching Hotline TV. Be thankful that we are as much as we are. And have a good week. Bye.